The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Wednesday.
And so we're back.
We're back.
Yeah. How's the walking wounded doing out there?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good. I'm glad you're.
And I appreciate the ride in. Since I can't drive. So
I'll be Uber today.
For a couple of days. You're going to be Uber, yeah.
Oh, I can't be Uber. They're on strike.
Yeah. So here we go, the Riv again, and you couldn't even get it, the Riv when I'm not in the Riv. I had Riv people, so.
I heard that. I heard that you were.
And police conclude use of force was justified in the arrest of the student, and I assume that this is by the Fall River Reporter.
Yep, that's a Fall River Reporter story.
And they basically said that they went through the video, and I did actually see part of that video on TV.
Yeah.
When I was up in Boston, and
well, the thing is that there's actually two videos now.
Yeah. They
have the school video, which shows the behavior of the student in the office, going around in the hallway, down the stairs. Then the police jump in, and then there's the video of just the police pouncing on the kid. So as I said on the show on Friday, when you only see part of the story, you can't really tell what's going on. You need the full picture of everything.
Yeah, and it showed it from the beginning. It showed him, knocking things off a table. He was being obviously aggressive and belligerent. But what got me about the article was they discussed about, it looked like he was attempting to punch him in the head in that video that was viral. Mm-hmm. And according to this, and obviously I didn't see the thing close up, they must have looked at an angle. He said he was actually attempting to hit him in the shoulder blade, as per the training, their training from the Mass Police training. Let's see, it's according to the Mass Municipal Police Training Committee standards. So he's striking the upper left shoulder blade of the student. So I'm always interested in this, since my background in this stuff, and this is the whole thing. When you see little vignettes, it doesn't show the whole thing, and also the danger to the officers is predicated on the individual. So when you see his prior behavior till it became a physical altercation, it is obvious he was in a highly agitated and combative state. So obviously that it puts more danger in. If he was compliant, docile, and following orders, you've got to realize that these officers have to protect themselves and everybody else in the school, and he did display extremely aggressive behavior. They looked at the tape. Seems like they've done a pretty thorough investigation. They went frame by frame, and according to what they said. So, well, I'm sure that everybody won't be happy, but unfortunately, these things do happen in the real world. So,
and that's what if you remember from the weekend flush. I know it's kind of like way in the background now.
Yeah.
I made a suggestion that maybe they have citizen evaluation or citizen review committees, but the police don't want that. They have those in New York. They have those
in the big cities,
other big cities, and they're effective. They don't take a side, and they just look at the facts as they're presented to them, and that's it. And of course, there's always bias somewhere, but maybe that's something Fall River should start looking into if these type of complaints are going to keep coming up. This way, we can't say, well, the police are covering for their own.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are believing that already, that, well, the police are only covering for their own. And we've heard it before. We've heard it on a car accident. We've heard it on a shooting. We've heard it, now we're hearing it here. And the people of Fall River are losing any faith they have in their own, in their own public safety, and that's an issue.
Oh, it is. And, look, nobody is going to, neither of us is a Pollyanna. We don't believe, we don't live in la la land here and believe that there's never been a cover-up or anything in the history of the police departments throughout the United States or throughout the world.
Right.
There have been situations where people vehemently disagree with the conclusions and stuff, but as you said, that's one of the reasons that precipitated those civilian review boards. But the problem that I have, and obviously it's personal with me, with civilian review boards, unless those civilians have some experience in being in hostile situations, sometimes it's hard to understand, because there may be an action that may be a little bit seem extreme to the average person, but you have to put that within the context of the environment that they were in, because you got to be hypersensitive because of something. You could be killed, you could be injured, you could be maimed in those situations. It's like walking from room to room in your house, and that's the only experience you ever have, going from room to room in your house, and then saying that when SWAT teams or military people are going house to house in combat situations and in criminal situations, that they have the same attitude. They're hypervigilant, they're more sensitive, and obviously they're going to react far quicker, and sometimes the reaction to the average eye may be a little bit too much too soon, but you have to put yourself in that position, because there is adrenaline, there are dangers lurking, because it is not a normal situation. But that's the only thing, and I think that if they do have civilian boards, if they put the right people on those boards that have an idea, and as you said, they're not there to take a side, and obviously if you put somebody on there that's always going to side with the civilian, it'll never be productive. But it appears to me from they did a thorough investigation, and you can say what you want, but the reality is I did see the beginning of that, and that young man was in an extremely agitated state. He was knocking things off the table.
Oh yeah, there was no question about that.
There's no question he was being extremely belligerent. So,
right.
So that's.
And the police department is a police officer's job is a job where he's got no guarantee that he's coming home at the end of the night. Yeah. At the end of shift, there's no guarantee he's coming home. Yeah, and we've seen that happen a couple of times here in Fall River already.
Yeah. Well, the most innocuous thing, because you're dealing with people that unknown situations. You're going into, just like firefighters go into buildings that are structurally impaired, because they don't know if that floor has been burnt out to the point where it's going to collapse under them, even if they're crawling like they're supposed to be. And police officers, look at Officer Junta.
Right. That's what
that was not a. The guy's giving out parking
passes. Yeah.
Passes. And it's like walking into a, that's the problem with this situation, these scenarios, that, they have enough danger. Obviously, they make a traffic stop. There could be a warrant out for that individual. Could be a criminal fleeing a crime. And obviously, they have a procedure for going and dealing with those. But a situation like this, Junta walked into a building to give out parking permits. Little did he know that he would end up in an altercation that cost him his life. Same thing when you're in a school. You got a school incident. Now, it could be fine. You walk in, it could be a student that's being reasonable, compliant, and that's the end of it. The police officer walks in and it's done. And there are far more of those situations that would happen. But then you get a situation where a student is agitated. Like I said, who knows what that individual, he might have had a knife, he might have had, he might have picked up something from a desk and attempted to hit someone. And, this is a completely different situation. These are situations that they're really difficult, and that's as you said, that's one of the problems with these jobs. A police officer, firefighter, those are the corrections officer. That's why they put those in group 4 and only those automatically. Those 3 positions, if you go to work and do everything right, you can still die.
Yeah, and you know, when you look at this in its entirety, you also got to listen to what the parents said. The father of this student turned around and said, "My son's in that school for a reason. He's he's not an angel."
Yeah.
But he still felt that the police were too excessive and they could have done something differently. Well, they were in the situation, directly in the situation. We weren't. So we can't say what was reasonable.
Well, like I said, you're looking at it, and I'm looking at it, and obviously I look at size ratios.
Right.
One of those police officers was smaller than the guy.
Right.
The student.
The student was a pretty big guy.
Pretty big kid. Yeah. And the other police officer was a little bit bigger, but physically, they were having difficulty restraining him because remember, the reality is that it's a lot tougher to restrain somebody than it is to taser them,
right,
or hit him over the head with a baton and maybe fracture his skull. So that's one of the problems of those situations. People who have never been in those situations don't understand that it is harder to restrain someone because you're trying to do that with the least amount of damage, but then that frees him up to combat that, and he can assault you. So it would have been easy if the police officer could just walk in and like they did in the old days when the beat cop used to hit you over the head with the baton, and drag you into the room. But they were trying to keep that as de-escalated as possible, at least in my opinion. And it's a tough situation because people don't realize it's much harder to control someone. Try to control someone even smaller than you. How many times have you seen a parent not be able to stop their children from waving their arms around and being, acting totally out of sorts? So, because that's a fine line. You're trying not to hurt the child, but you're also trying to restrain a child. And restraining an individual is one of the most difficult things you can do. And people have to understand that. So with that, we get away from people doing a job that sometimes is thankless and where they can do everything right, they can still die. 2, the guy who does the job that you can do nothing and go to Vegas and not tell anybody. So
I'll take 200 on black.
So the mayor was sitting, I was told, I didn't see the picture, shirtless at a blackjack table at Caesar's Palace.
And it was right by the pool, so it might have been one of those in-pool blackjack tables.
Yeah, they do have swim-up blackjack tables in some of the casinos. Caesar's is a very high-end casino, too. I mean, it's one of the real top casinos in Vegas. And Caesar's got a really nice, pool area and things like that. It's a high-end casino. Been there many times. I didn't stay there because it's a little too upscale for me.
Too hoity-toity.
I'd rather spend my money on the tables than on the room because I don't spend any time in the room. But but you know what disturbs me about this thing is his attitude. It's like the mayor. He said, this is I guess President, Council President. He did not need to notify anyone that he was out of town and claimed the issue was being blown out of proportion. The charter does address temporary absence of mayor, indicating the reason of, quote, sickness or other cause, the mayor is unable to perform his duties of the office, unquote, and the city council president would temporarily take over. But the vacation would not necessarily mean he would be unable to perform his duties, Ponte acknowledged. Well, I don't acknowledge that, Council President Ponte. I absolutely do not acknowledge that. This is the propaganda from the Goebbels propaganda machine that politicians have now convinced the people, like his pal Jorge Alorza, that spent almost half a year outside of the city of Providence and then cavalierly said, when questioned on it, why do I have to be there? I just pick up the phone and talk to the people who are running the show while I'm gone. Well, maybe that's why we need an e-charter. What the hell is a mayor? What happened if we had a catastrophe in Fall River? Was our chief executive officer going to be there to to tell the people that I'm here, I'm in charge. No, he's at a blackjack table in Caesar's Palace with his shirt off. And all the people he gave stipends to are here running the city, even though it's supposed to be the council president. And I vehemently disagree with Council President Ponte. You're being paid to be the mayor. You're going to have a vacation. It's in the contract. You can have a vacation. All other city employees have a vacation. But when you go on vacation, you should have a duly elected successor running the city. Not Kathy Ann Viveris. Cliff Ponte was voted into office as a councilor, voted by the council to become its president, and he is supposed to run the city when the mayor is not in the city. I don't want to, this is absolute, this is like Washington. Everything is semantics. It's not spying. I wouldn't use the word spying. Well, you know something, that's political BS. Because all we're doing is dealing with semantic crap. When a police officer's on stakeout or on surveillance, what are they doing on those people? They're spying on them. Because they're policed, it's called surveillance. If you or I did it, it would be called stalking. So, same thing. They're investigating. It's part of the investigation, but they got euphemisms. So, what are they doing up there playing word games instead of dealing with a new drug that's going to cost $5 million a dose with all the problems we have in the United States? And now we got a mayor here that thinks he can just run off without telling anybody and let his appointed stooges run this city. Well, I don't want his appointed stooges running the city. I want someone that was duly elected, regardless of whether I voted for a person or not. That's, you know, he's the mayor. He was elected. As much as I disagreed with it, he is the mayor. But damn it, you just got reelected on a technicality. You think you'd have enough presence of forethought to stay in a damn city? And then you're going to run for re-election on what? What's your new campaign slogan? I'll run the city from Vegas? Because I don't need to be here. Well, what the hell do we need you for?
Well, here's another issue. This isn't the first time. This isn't the second time. This is the third time in a year he has taken these one-week vacations.
Yeah.
Okay? Does he have a 4-week vacation clause in his contract?
Who knows?
You know, we don't know. But I'll tell you now, one of the things that came up, and it's, you know, in the article it even says it, a condition of Correa's bail is that he gives his probation officer notice if he leaves the state for more than a day. They called to find out. Now, the details of the probation are public, but the interviews in between are not. They're confidential. So we're never going to know whether he,
Well, don't you
reported
think
it or not. But if he didn't, maybe he'll get picked up and taken into custody.
Well, don't you think the probation officer's sworn duty is to make him adhere to the conditions of his probation? So if the probation officer is made aware that he was out of the city for a week, and that isn't being in compliance with the conditions of his probation, I think he is legally obligated,
right,
to pursue action against the mayor.
Well, and you know, and true, he should take action against the mayor. Now, also, let's look at the fact that on the 15th, which isn't that far away from today, the 15th, the mayor has to present his budget to the city council. Now, tell me, how are you going to present your budget to the city council when you have no clue? Okay? I mean, it's a budget that you're already having difficulty balancing.
Yeah, and you want to implement the tax 4 years early.
Right.
So the debt exclusion, so.
Right, so let's look at this. Is that budget going to be ready in the next 6 or 7 days to present to the city council?
Look, CJ, there's no possible way that this budget could be ready by the next ice age. Because let's look at who's putting together the budget. The same people in the other article, expansions, job creations for Florida companies seeking TIFs. And this is the first thing that stuck in my eye. They're talking about a TIF for Ice Cube and raw seafoods in the beginning of this article by Paul Jasinski. And it said, in both cases, Viveris was unable to provide an estimate of how much money such agreement might save the companies. So here we go, our financial team again doesn't have any answers to anything. All I know is it's going to cost us more taxes for those TIFs, and they're creating virtually no jobs, and now we're giving TIFs to boutiques.
Yeah,
25 jobs for these things, 25 jobs.
And that's not for the boutiques.
No, that's not for the boutique. There's 25 jobs for the company they're going to give the TIFs to.
That's
and how many
raw
people
seafood
from
company.
Fall River? Maybe 3 or 4 minimum wage jobs, and they're going to save, thousands and thousands of dollars in taxes. That is going to go into our rate because we have to make it up.
Also look at the fact that, the Anderson Little building, which is, which was bought by Merrill Manufacturing. They are getting a TIF for entirety for 1 year. 100% of the taxes, which is $147,000, wiped off.
Well,
I think those tax incentives should be classified as income to the people receiving them.
well, at least one thing, if the mayor goes down, he could, to the budget, he can tell them that, one of the strategies he's going to use is you always split 8s and never split 10s. Because that's basic blackjack strategy. So he was probably studying that basic blackjack strategy card when he was at the blackjack table. But I mean, this is it's absurd. I mean, the government on every level. You look at the federal government spinning wheels about everything. It's all about getting reelected, and that's the key. See, this kind of is a microcosm of the problem we have in this country. These politicians, all they do is collect money, flap their gums, and do nothing. And it's a scam because the country is run by the federal bureaucrats that they appoint to these jobs. The country runs with the federal offices that are filled with people who got there because of their political alliances. Same thing in the city. The mayor doesn't even have to show up. All the cronies that he put into jobs, Monica, Kathy, they're all going to run the city his way, or they'll do nothing till he comes back, or they're doing whatever they want now anyway because he doesn't have a clue. And all those things are unacceptable answers to what's happening. And this is your government, people. This is what you vote in. So let's look at the council meeting. Let's see if they give these people TIFs. Let's see if they allow the mayor to go on vacation and not. And as I said, I totally disagree with Council President Ponte saying that, that being on vacation would not really allow him to not to run the government. He's out of town. He's out of town,
If government center dropped on 195, I wonder how fast he would get here.
It's like having, look, people are entitled to vacations, but when you're on vacation, you've got to have a mechanism where somebody is in charge who is supposed to be in charge. It's like the fire chief. He goes on vacation. If there's a major fire in the city of Fall River, there is a chain of command that the deputy chief will take over the job. And same thing with the police department, the same thing with all departments. We have a mechanism. An elected official is supposed to replace the elected mayor, not one of the employees of the mayor.
That you give stipends to.
That's right. So, I mean, if that doesn't, if this stuff doesn't make you crazy, and the people we elect still don't get it. The council president still, he was on a vacation. No, Jorge Elorza is wrong. And you said 3 vacations, but that's not counting the paid vacation with the excuse that he went to Paris,
Right.
or he went down to Miami and stayed at the Fontainebleau.
Exactly.
And all these other, they call them seminars, but they're vacations. And, but as I said, I know what he'll say. Hey, don't complain to me. Jorge Elorza spent $140 8 days or something out of Providence, and he said it on TV. Oh, what's the big deal? That's the propaganda. Therein lies the Nazi propaganda. Joseph Goebbels. Tell a big lie enough and believe it. And what did I still remember laws are on television, holding his hand up, pretending he was on a phone. All I got to do is pick up the phone and talk to my people. Well, if your people are running a city effectively without you there, why the hell are you there in the first place? So what is that? That is my endorsement of an e-charter. Ceremonial mayor, because obviously they only are ceremonial because we don't even need them in a damn city.
It's getting to be ridiculous. And again, you know, people are like, no, we have to have a mayor. Why do we have to have a mayor? He's not here half the time. He doesn't know what's going on with his budget. And if you look at that story, towards the end, it says the magic number to balance this budget is $2 million. And where does that magic number come from?
A debt override.
Page to throw.
And debt override.
But that's how they're going to fill it. But where did it come from? It came from the page to throw program.
Look, the bottom line is you're backfilling.
Exactly.
$2 million is missing because of the contract with the bags.
Right.
$2 million is missing, and it's Chinese checkers, because that, as we've said numerous times on this show about money, if you take it out of the budget, it's not there anymore. You got to find money if you're still going to have bills. So you have to find that money. So that's why we're talking about debt override, bags. It's all about the money that's missing that he eliminated, that he said he could eliminate without any problem. So again, why do we need a mayor? We don't need a mayor if a mayor is not being the mayor. The mayor has to be an actual part of the government. Otherwise, they're ceremonial. They're like the Queen of England. The Queen of England does not run England.
Oh, the Duke of Sussex.
Yeah, or Sussex, you know, because, you know.
Baby Sussex, you know.
They like to worship their royalty, but their royalty has nothing to do with their government anymore.
Right.
It's a ceremonial position, although it's very well paid. But if you look at Worcester, Worcester has been run pretty effectively for a very long time, and they haven't had a mayor at any time that I've ever remembered. They've always had, and in almost every law in the state of Massachusetts, when you begin to read a law, it says, in every city, you know, town, county, except Worcester, this law, and then they go on to tell you what the law is, because Worcester has a completely different way of operating because of the ceremonial mayor, and that's what he is. Look, if our mayor is going to be the chief blackjack player at Caesar's Palace, he's going to go, his primary function is to go on trips to seminars, and he's going to cut ribbons and let the people that he hires run the city. Well, then he's ceremonial.
Yes.
You know, when the mayor didn't have a city administrator, didn't have a chief operating officer or a chief financial officer, all these assistants, and he got paid, he was running the city. Now, over the years, he's gotten a complete battery of people to run the city. So therefore, he has basically phased himself out of his job because he is no longer the leader of this city. He is a ceremonial leader. He has no job. We have somebody to do all the work, and they reiterate this every time they say, I don't have to be here. You're right. And you shouldn't be there. And if you're there, you should be getting a stipend, ceremonial stipend, no mayor.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens with this, I'll tell you now. So,
but
hey, believe it or not, we're already at the end of the show.
Yeah, well, we started at a different time, a little bit early, so it's hard to keep track. But remember, watch the TIFs. Let's see if the boutique gets a TIF. I'll bet you that boutique is a campaign contributor.
Most likely,
Just a wild guess.
And he's only got $4,000 left in his campaign account, by the way. Hey, thanks for watching. We'll see you on Friday. If you got any questions or comments, send them over to us.
Can he put some of his winnings in his campaign account from Vegas?
It's his money.